Hi, I'm Dan Merzeka. I'm here at ECB, and today we're going to go over the changeover process on the ECB25. So the first step that you need to do before you change over is update your recipe. To do that, you need to log in as the maintenance user. After logging in, there are more diagnostic tabs that become available, and the recipe tab is on the top. The recipe tab expands down and shows you a list of up to 50 recipes. After loading the recipe, there's a pop-up that reminds you there's physical changeover of the machine that has to happen, more than just updating the recipe values. Once the recipe is loaded, you're ready to move on to the next step. After loading the recipe, the next step is to move some actuators out of the way so they're ready to be adjusted. To do that, you'll enter manual mode down on the bottom, and then go to the Setup tab. We're going to start by moving the seal head up. So under Sealer, manual move the sealer to 0 position. So now the seal head is up out of the way, which will allow us to set the seal head height. The other actuators that you need to move are going to be the compression relief and the product clamp. To know where you need to move those, look at the recipe. Here the recipe is going to show if they are enabled or not. So the product clamp is A3 actuator, the compression relief is the A5 actuator. If they're enabled, you need to extend both of them. To do that, you go to the Setup tab. These actuators are located in the Infeed section, so navigate to the Infeed tab. And to extend it, there's a button that says Extend. After it's extended, the button will update its text to show that you can retract it. If it says retract already, that means the actuator is already in the extend position and you're ready to move on. The next step is to turn setup mode on. This disables the movement of the pusher access and the conveyors, so it is safe to enter the machine with the doors open. The first thing we're going to adjust is the guide assembly height. This is going to set where the hold down is and where the seal bar retracts to it after each seal. To do that, first we want to extend the hold down actuator. The hold down actuator is part of the sealer area, so go to the Setup tab, to the Sealer tab, and then extend the product hold down. Now that we're in setup mode, we can open the doors in order to get in to adjust the guides. The first guide that you'll want to loosen up is the right infeed guide. This is to prevent any binding when we're adjusting the assembly height. To loosen up the right infeed guide, there are 2 knobs. Just twist them counterclockwise to loosen it up. The next 2 guides that you'll want to loosen up before adjusting the guide assembly height is the 2 product guide arms. Those can be adjusted and loosened up via these 2 knobs right there. The main guide assembly can be adjusted via this crank up here. By switching this lever up here, you can adjust the guide assembly up or adjust the guide assembly down. So the guide assembly height can be adjusted via this ruler on the side and this edge of the guide to the recipe value that is saved, or if it is a new product, take your product, place it underneath the hold down plate, and crank the assembly down until the hold down plate is making contact with the top of the product. Once you're done adjusting the main guide assembly height for the sealer, you're ready to move back to the Infeed section to make adjustments there. The next step is to loosen up the Infeed guides so that they can be moved out of the way for the pusher head swap. To loosen up the guides, the top left knob adjusts the guide to be able to go in and out, so loosen up that one. And then the bar itself spins counterclockwise to allow the rod to move left to right. The top knob is for height adjustment, which we won't get into right now. Continue to repeat that same procedure on the second and third mounts. And then slide it back out of the way. And then do the same thing for the lower guide arm. The next step is to adjust the compression relief and move it out of the way. To do that, there are two knobs on the assembly and then one crank lever, and then it will slide back. With the Infeed guide arms out of the way and the compression relief assembly moved out of the way, we're ready to change out the pusher head. To do that, go back to the HMI to the recipe screen and find the pusher head ID for the recipe. The pusher head ID is located in the top right. Here it shows the number. Then go and find the matching pusher head ID, which will have that number engraved on top of the pusher head. To change out the pusher head, open the front two doors of the enclosure, manual pull back on the arm, and then unscrew the three knobs. If your package size is small, you'll have to change out the pusher arm itself along with the pusher head, which will be the two bolts right here. Next, we're going to set up the Infeed guide arms and adjust them next to the pusher head. First, take your product and place it in front of the pusher head, and then manually push it forward until it makes contact. This will be used as a reference when sliding the guide arms over. To set the guide arms, place your product on the Infeed conveyor. Slide the guide arms over so there's about a 1/4 inch gap at the end between the pusher head and the end of the guide arm. And then you want to push the assembly forward until it makes contact with the product on both the top and the bottom. And then back it off just a little bit so the product can move freely. And then tighten everything down. The next step is to adjust the compression relief assembly, which will slide over toward the pusher head. Slide it over till there's about a 1/4 inch gap between the face and the edge of the pusher head. The next step is to make sure your product end sensor is properly centered with your product, and then tighten it down using a 5/16 wrench. To make sure the compression relief assembly is set to the correct location, what you want to do, align your products so they're up against the compression relief plate, and then go and retract the compression relief on the HMI. Going to the setup page, the Infeed, retract, and then slide the products down. With the product firmly making contact, visually sight down this edge of the pusher plate to make sure that it is not going to make contact with this package. To set up the compression relief assembly For a compressible, non-rigid product, there's a little bit of a different setup that you'll need to follow. First of all, if you navigate to the recipe page, to the Infeed section, if you're reloading a recipe already, you'll notice that the product clamp, the compression relief are both disabled, and then the option to stop the conveyor before pushing is enabled. If these are not this way for your recipe and you're setting up for a new product, you want to make sure to shut off those two actuators and enable that mode for the conveyor. Before going over to adjust the assembly, first retract the compression relief out of the way. For this spray bottle, we'll need to adjust the height of the compression relief. You want to adjust it up to be just below midway up the bottle using a 5mm Allen. And then you'll want to slide over the assembly. So there's about a 1/4 inch gap between the front of the plate and the pusher head. And then lock it down. To confirm that your compression relief assembly is set to the right position, make sure that the next bottle of the next package is not going to get clipped by the pusher head as it moves forward. To do that, you can visually sight down the edge of the pusher plate to make sure that it is still going to push the appropriate number of bottles and not catch this bottle at all. If it does need some fine adjustment, adjust your compression relief forward or back. After confirming that your compression relief assembly is in the right location, extend out the compression relief again. With the compression relief extended, you can now set your right Infeed guide. Slide your products over so they're making contact with that compression relief plate. To set the right Infeed guide position, set it to the pre-recorded recipe value, which would correlate to the ruler on the top, which should make it set so that there is a 1/4 inch gap between the side of the product and the edge of the guide. The height of the guide is set just so that it is above the product dam and the guide over here. Once it's in the right spot, lock it in place. When setting up the right Infeed guide position for small products, it'll be important to swap out the front plate on that guide. It'll be apparent when you're setting it up, especially you can see there's a gap right here. When the actuator for the product dam is going to drop down, there would be nothing to guide the product in that area, which is why you would need to swap out to the longer guide. And that can be done just through the 4 Phillips screws on the guide itself. To adjust the Infeed product clamp, you loosen up these 2 knobs, and you set the clamp location to the pre-recorded recipe value using the ruler there, which should correlate to making positive contact with the bottle, holding it in place when this actuator is extended. So adjust it so it's making contact. Move it out of the way. Select the 2 holes that are closest and screw it back down. To confirm that the clamp is in the correct location, the bottle should no longer be able to pass by with the actuator extended. When adjusting the Infeed product clamp for a non-rigid compressible bottle, based off the recipe, if it's not being used, adjust the product clamp all the way back out of the way. The next step is to position the pusher head by grabbing it and pulling backwards to ensure that the front face of the pusher head is offset behind the front face of the Infeed guide arm. And after manually moving the pusher back offset from the Infeed guide arm, you come into the setup page, the Infeed tab, and you verify that the current position of the pusher is its new home position. If you are loading from a saved recipe, those values should be the same. If they're not, you can update them. And the next step is to set the product start sensor above the final product in the package. But to do that, loosen up the two crank levers, slide the laser over, and position the laser dot on top of that final package. And then lock it in place. After setting the product start sensor, you navigate to the recipe tab. And down at the bottom, if you're loading from a previous recipe, the value should be accurate. If not, you can update it now. So this is the live feedback from the sensor, 2.1. You're setting the product good height. So this is the height at which it will start the push. So you can update that to 2.1. And save. After configuring the product start height, you want to configure the down bottle height. Simply take your product, lay it down in front of the laser, and then go record the value on the HMI. So again, this is the live number from the laser right now, 5.7, and this is the height at which the product height will trigger the bad alarm. So you can update that to 5.7. With this down product detector enabled, the machine will shut down if it detects a downed bottle. Next, we'll set the product guide arms on the rear of the sealer. To do that, you either set the guide arm to the corresponding recipe value, or if you're setting it up for the first time, set the height to be about halfway up your product, and then align this front edge of the guide arm offset back from that Infeed guide, just by sighting down it, about 1/4 inch, and then lock it in place. For the right guide arm, you do the same thing, set it to the preset recipe value, or if setting it up for the first time, align it to be about the same middle of the height of the bottle, and then about 1/4 inch back from this face to where that compression relief is, and lock it in place. The last step is to do film changeover. If needed, the ideal way to change the film is to splice in the new roll into the old roll. To splice in the film, fold it back, cut off the old roll, and remove it. To put the new film on, fold back the film that's there. Put the next roll of film on top, ensuring that the film is going over the top. Take the piece that you had cut off, fold it back, and then using a piece of tape, you can splice the two together. By doing this, you can then go to the front and pull the new roll of film through without needing to manually thread it and weave it through the dancer bars. To change out the film, on the lower unwind, it's the exact same procedure as on top. So the next step, change over the film, is to reference the recipe first to get the right film information. To do that, go to the recipe tab, and then select the unwind. And on the right-hand side here, it says where to place the clamps to hold the film in place. It says what the film width should be, the thickness, and the film type. After doing that, for a visual spot on the HMI of where those clamps are located, go to the setup page on physical setup 1, and there is a picture that again shows those recipe values and where to put the clamps. The first step is to lift up the pinch roller. It is held up by a magnet. And then load the film on. so that, again, the film is going over the top. Your film should be centered in using the rulers across the bottom. So this is 16-inch wide film, so I can just slide the lock, the color lock, to be at 8 and 8, which will center the film in the machine. To thread the film, you go underneath the pinch roller, over the top of this first roller, and then proceed to weave the film back and forth according to the film diagram through the dancer bar. After the last row of the dancer bar, you come back up and go through this roller on the inside next to the machine. The film then goes on the outside of the roller of the seal head and then down into the seal area. If you're unable to splice the film in on the bottom unwind, the procedure is very similar to the top unwind. First, lift up the pinch roller, load the film on, ensure that the film is rolling over in this direction, and then it will go underneath the pinch roller but above that first bar. And then go over to the exit infeed door to continue setting the film. Continue pulling the film through over the top roller and then snake it back and forth according to the film diagram for the lower unwind. Every time the dancer bar is pulled forward, that triggers the stepper motors to move to start unwinding the film. But because that pinch roller is up, it will not do anything. After threading the film for both the top and the bottom unwinds, you can re-engage the pinch roller by pulling it down. Now this will help you as you're underneath splicing the film together for both the top and bottom unwinds. Now the unwind motor can help to thread that film through. To splice the top and bottom unwinds, take the film from the top and send it through the gap down to the bottom. After threading the film through the top, grab it and pull down. Lay it on top of the film from the bottom unwind, ensuring that both films are going on the tunnel side of this roller bar. And then splice the two films together with a piece of tape. Next, after splicing the two films together below, you'll want to reach into the seal bar area and pull that splice up carefully. And at this point, we'll want to turn on the seal bar heater to make our first seal. To turn the seal bar heater on, you have to first exit setup mode with all the doors closed. Acknowledge the alarm. It's manual mode turned on. Turn on the seal bar heater. You'll be ready to seal. You go back to the first home page. When the sealer temperature reaches its set point, you'll be ready to make the first seal. While the seal bar is heating up, because we moved the whole assembly height for a new product, we need to have it find its seal bar home value. To do that, go into the setup mode. With manual mode still on, go to the sealer tab, and there is a find seal bar home. Push the button. While we're waiting for the seal bar to reach its set point temperature, you can come in and when you're in setup mode and make sure that your film is nice and flat across that seal bar area so that the film is not going to trip either of the two photo eyes when the seal happens. Now that the seal bar temperature has reached its set point, we're ready to make that first seal. To get that first seal, once your seal bar has reached its temperature, all you have to do is push the head cycle button with manual mode on. After you've made that first seal, you're ready to turn the tunnel on, wait for it to get up to temperature, and run product. To turn the tunnel on, there's a toggle button right on the front screen. This concludes our ECB25 changeover process. I hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please check out our YouTube or our website at ecb25a.com.